This is the last section of my very long reaction video, picking apart the first trailer for the new Dune movie coming out. And I want to close out here by talking about not so much what was in it, but what wasn't. This was very clearly the Atreides trailer, and I'm not faulting them for this. You know, you start with, this is Paul Atreides, these are his parents. Fine, you need to introduce the main characters first, before then introducing all the other major players. I really think this won't be the only trailer we see of this. Will future trailers introduce more of the Fremen, more of a Fremen focus in the next one, or more focus on the Harkonnens? Will we even get a Corrino trailer for the first movie? I don't know. And that leads into an open question I have. Even Quinn and all the other major channels, they don't know. We haven't heard any casting information for the younger of the Baron's two nephews, Feyd Harkonnen, nor for any of the Corrinos, the Imperial family. And we're not sure how they're going to handle that, or if it's a good idea that, well, going back to the failures of the David Lynch movie versus what the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries generally got right, is the book is structured in such a way that you don't really meet the Corrinos until the last chapter, but they talk about them all the time. Like the Harkonnens are talking about their strategy for how to deal with the Emperor, representatives of the Emperor come, and it's also, the book is structured in such a way that every chapter begins with a quote from an in-universe book. So like Princess Irulan Corrino, it'll have quotes from books she wrote, so in a certain sense she is in the whole book, but it's quotes from books she wrote years later, looking back on these events. What the miniseries, I think, did very well was they invented a couple of new scenes for the Corrinos, for Irulan, back over on the Imperial planet Kaitain, and they intercut them with everything else. And I would even say they invented them so much as they translated them, that it's like an excerpt from a book Irulan wrote that they're quoting. You can do that in a book, versus in the visual format of, a TV miniseries, they said, well, let's give her saying those reactions live. So they'll intercut between events on Arrakis, on Dune, and now here's the Imperial Palace, where then they'll show the Emperor and his daughter reacting to this news and debating it amongst themselves, or a Spacing Guild representative talking to Reverend Mother Mohiam while Irulan is listening in on them. And it's not a huge story arc. It's not shoehorning in a lot of new information. It's just, they realized it would be kind of anticlimactic and weird if they really only show up in the last 10 minutes. Let's just work them in a little, just reaction scene here and there. That was a good idea. Lynch's plan for this was, I'm going to start the movie with an info dump monologue. That isn't how visual storytelling works. Much less, I can't figure out how to convey internal monologues from a book, so I'm going to have voiceovers? Come on! No one does that. The Dune miniseries didn't need to do that. That's just lazy. I digress. Point is, they really mishandled how to deal with the Corrinos in that, because in David Lynch's movie, they start with an info dump by Irulan, which is tonally weird, and then she shows up at the end of the movie. They're not really characters then, are they? Because it's this whole thing that they're a presence, that Duke Leto will be talking to Paul about, this is what we're doing with maneuvering our way around the Emperor politically, and this is what the Harkonnens are doing to try and get the Emperor's favor. You need to show that. And the miniseries did a good job of it. It was a minor change, or just it's not a change, it's updating it to work them in better, to show this is what they were doing off-screen in the books. If you ask the book person, yeah, it's probably what the Emperor was saying off-screen. So the fear is, what if they haven't cast the Emperor or Irulan yet, because they're not going to be a major presence in the movies? Either of them. What if they're just showing up at the end of the second movie? I don't know how they could do that. and have people invested in them without at least showing them in the first movie. And the weirder part, though, is Feyd Harkonnen, that he is at the beginning of the book. When the Baron Harkonnen is having a council scene, he has Feyd sit in on it. And it's so weird that he's easier to work in, have him in scenes with the Baron. We know the Baron is in the movie. We barely saw him yet, though I feel better that we only saw him for a split second just go and kill them. That's nothing. We haven't really seen him yet. But, again, in that 15-minute actor interview they did right before they dropped the trailer, I felt very encouraged that the director said, watch him for 5 seconds on screen in full Baron mode, and you'll know we made the right choice. He seemed very impressed with Skarsgård as the Baron Harkonnen, and he's a good actor, so I'm looking forward to that. This wasn't the Harkonnen trailer, this was the Atreides trailer. Still, you can see how they can fall into, well, we wouldn't cast Irulan Corrino, and they're going to treat her as a minor character, which is regrettable. But Feyd, why isn't he in scenes with the Baron and setting him up as like the anti-Paul Atreides? So what I want to leave you on is this stupid theory. I know it's crazy that I'm only half on board with, in the back of my mind, suspicion as a possibility, just so I have it out there as a record of, I kind of wondered if this is what they were doing. I seriously doubt it, though. What if Chalamet plays Feyd? Not identical, they'd have his hair different and stuff, and he'd be dressed differently, but it's this whole, they mention that he looks a lot like Paul, and he's like this dark mirror image of Paul, the evil version of him. And they set him up as this anti-Paul that he has to fight at the climax of the story. And wouldn't it be so weird if they've been hiding from us that they want Chalamet to play Feyd? And, physically, I think you could do that by just, they're not in that many scenes together, and when they actually do, they could cover that with technology and doubles. They're probably not going to do that, but just, that's one possibility that it was interesting possibility that occurred to me. I'm like, I hope they don't do that. I hope we just haven't heard of Feyd yet, but he will be a different actor in the first movie, setting him up for the next movie. Or how are they going to do that? Or how are they going to, is it going to be different because there's a time jump, which there is a time jump in the books, that it's got 3 internal chapters, and between the second and third parts, there's a 3-year time jump, which is a natural stopping point. So great, split it into 2 movies. It needs more time to do this right. Just, we are not seeing Feyd and Corrinos. We saw Sardaukar dressed in Harkonnen uniforms, but it was exciting seeing Raban. I was not expecting to be really pumped from seeing Raban. But Bautista really is bringing his all to this. It's just, how are they dealing with the other Harkonnens? And how are they going to deal with all this? I'm not sure. Questions I would ask. So I'll make more reaction videos when they put out more stuff. Again, I am not an expert, even though I've been ranting about this, but I've seen so many news sites where they're like, oh yeah, we knew this movie was coming for 2 years and never read it, even though it's one of the triumphs of science fiction that everyone holds up as part of the canon of sci-fi that you're supposed to read. And it was ahead of its time in terms of all the politics in it and all the social issues. If you haven't read it by now, in the middle of a pandemic that had us all quarantined for 6 months, when you knew for 2 years this was coming out, you just don't read books. You're this illiterate person just living on iPhones. It amazes me that I have a relative who has a 4-year-old son. He just turned 4. And he knows how to play Minecraft, and he can't read. None of the children in his age group in his preschool, they can't read yet, but he knows how to play Minecraft. Now, obviously not play it well. He's using free mode. He's just drawing. It's a drawing tool, basically. But that whole thing that we're turning into people just glued to our TVs and seeing the moving images or the apps on our phones. And even though we've tried to get text back into this iPhone culture, well, there's this thing called a Kindle. It fits in your palm, or you can read an ebook on your iPhone. How did we turn to a culture that just, I don't want to read a book? when I know there's a movie based on it. And I know it's supposed to be a movie experience unto itself, but you're casual viewers. You're not reporting on it. Like, people who think I can be in the news and reporting on this, having never read it, but writing articles on, well, you see, there's Arrakis, and there's this stuff called the Spice, and the Atreides and Harkonnens, and they don't know any of the names. It's just hand it off to people who know what they're doing. Please stop mansplaining this to all of us, as the saying goes. That if I walk up to, this is the shibboleth of our age, you know, that if I see one of these reporters, if I was at a panel that the Dune cast was at, I just go to them, answer this question immediately. What does CHOAM stand for? And if they don't instantly go, well, Combine, Honen, Ober, Advanced, or Mercantiles, I'll move on to the next person. That, like, you clearly don't know what this is, and you are not treating it seriously. Okay, that's an extreme case. It should be a movie for people who haven't read the books, but if you're reporting on it, maybe you should be familiar with it, and know that these are questions that where other channels are going, wait, what's a sandworm? What's an Atreides? I'm here as one of, like, the 5 channels I've seen asking, hey, where's Feyd Harkonnen, and shouldn't you be introducing Irulan Corrino earlier than this? It's that divide between the people who really know their stuff, and I don't even consider myself an expert, just, I saw the previous miniseries that was based on this, and how they did it. I'm comparing you to the 2000 miniseries. And also, I really hope that the Corrinos, because they're the Imperial Court, have a lot of cool sci-fi costumes and stuff, and ostentatious to show we're the ruling family, because you have to have pomp in this space aristocracy. If you don't have pomp and circumstance for the Corrinos of the Dune saga, when will you have pomp? Otherwise, we're just living in a gray, gray world.